Hello, and I've got another set of tips for you today. This is kind of what I would describe as, the little details that people don't pay attention to, but you should probably pay attention to. Like, for example, if you didn't already know this, if you go up to your profile, right, you've all probably heard that you can get skins in this game. What you probably already noticed is that there is actually a stat that is associated on actually having these activated, and having them activated will then give you that particular stat bonus. And this is also true of March skins, as it is also true of, weirdly enough, right? Avatar frames, even teleportation happens to have some of these bonuses. The other detail, this is my second tip, something that I think maybe goes without saying, but a lot of people I think kind of forget, is that if you are, say, somebody that wants to build an HQ somewhere else, right? Like you're trying to take over a fort, a facility, whatever. You want to make sure that you don't get into this habit of building one of these without actually thinking about where your other alliance banners are. Because one of the bad habits that people get into is it'll tell you retired, of course, if you build an HQ without having those banners connected to the HQ. So, if you want to avoid problems, you want to make sure that you keep your banners connected to your HQ. Okay? Something else that comes up from time to time too is people will wonder, like, how do I go about getting resources? And it sometimes is kind of a fair balance between what you are accessing for the banners. That is to say, if you look around on the map and you're actually building the banners, I mean, one of the things you have to understand about this is that this is unique to the actual, well, mainly the R5 of the Alliance is going to be handling this, but you're going to be looking for like things like Alliance Farm, Alliance Ore, and so on and so forth, because this is what you can connect to get the occupation bonus. But having said that, right, even like here, I can see that we're not actually getting that occupation bonus because we don't have it under our control. Now, like here, we do. And it all has to do with the fact that you've got to get a certain percentage of that square. You can see I've got about 3/4 of the square here, where I've only got 2 of the squares here. So it is kind of, you have to have that in mind when you're setting up your banners, because otherwise you will be losing out on the potential resource gains that you would not normally get otherwise. Now, of course, like anything, make sure you think about the facilities you're going to grab too, because all facilities are not made equal. Some of them give you occupation bonuses, and including rewards, that may not be of value to you, depending on what you're wanting to do. So you want to kind of have that planned out. The third tip that I have is that if you are somebody that frequently finds themselves getting hit and penalized, you'll often want to make sure that you actually store a lot of your loyalty, and then you want to go ahead and recover it. And then once you've done that, you're going to require more and more loyalty faster by gathering. So if you haven't already made a habit of doing this, you really want to make sure you're going out and actually trying to gather as often as possible if you still have stuff in your enlistment office. Otherwise, you're just really kind of screwing yourself in a way. And I don't know. I see it too often where somebody will just kind of let that sit dormant for too long. And by the time they get ready for the next SVS, they're pretty much slaughtered. It's kind of a shame, really, because it doesn't have to be that way. About the only other detail worth mentioning here is that if you do your caves, obviously make sure you try and challenge and do these as much as you can, because you will want to get all of the benefits that you can from the actual, again, the individual defense of these is going to vary depending on what rewards you'll gain out of it, but most of the time you can do these, and it's not terribly tricky. But what you want to do is, once you've actually built up enough boxes, you'll want to save, usually go for about 100 hero chests before you just start opening them. And with labyrinth treasures, I mean, I feel like with the like the percentage drop is such a high note for the mythic shards that I kind of try to go for every 100 to 200 before I start opening these, Now, if you do it, just make sure that you kind of have that in mind because, again, this, in my opinion, is a really good source of where you can gain not only some stats coming off of your actual island, which, again, if you don't already know this, that is also a good chunk of where, and a lot of other stats can be gained as you go over to the dock, and then just go ahead and pick up your 2 greens. Make sure you're going up here and tapping on anybody that's red, and make sure you actually get the extra helps in per day because, again, this is just stuff that it adds up. Because if you do it regularly enough and you actually get enough, then what you can do is you can actually start upgrading these buildings, and most of the time these upgrades are going to give you different stat bonuses. So it's just another thing that you can do. But needless to say, that's what I recommend for Whiteout Survival.